I'm Ellen. Like I said in my last video, I have to do a lot of work this year in order for applying to uni. And that includes doing a lot of reading. I really want to study classical studies at uni, and so I thought I'd share with you today my classics/ancient history TBR. The books are going to be split up into non-fiction and fiction. The first book that I'm going to be reading is SPQR by Mary Beard. I love Mary Beard. I've watched loads of her programs. I think she's an amazing woman and classicist. SPQR is basically about Rome, the history of Rome, from its humble beginnings to its huge empire which stretches across the continent, even up here to Britain. And I think it's going to be really good, and I'm really excited to read it. The second book that I'm going to be reading is Pompeii by Mary Beard. Once again, like I said, I do love her so much. Now, Pompeii focuses on looking at the ruins and what they can tell us about life back then. I know that Pompeii was more of a holiday resort town for the wealthy people, so it'd be interesting to see how this is reflected in this book. And I have been to Pompeii. I went last October, and I think reading this book will help, and being able to visualise Pompeii will really strengthen my classical knowledge. The next book that I'm reading is A Brief Guide to Classical Civilization by Stephen Kershaw. So this book is basically an overarching summary of, as you can see it's not very big, of pretty much the entire history of ancient Greece and Rome. So it starts with the Minoans in Crete, which is about 3650 BC, I think, and then it goes all the way up to the fall of Rome, which is in 476 AD. Yeah, I think because it is an overview, it will help me to decide which parts of the classics I really enjoy, especially whether it's more Greek or more Roman, and yeah, I think it'll just be really useful for my studies. The next book and final non-fiction book that I'll be reading is Roman Art by Peter Stewart. Now, I love art. I actually study art history, but I don't know much about Roman art other than your kind of, freestanding statues, etc. I think this will be very interesting, and I will learn more about, funerary art and portraits and domestic paintings and mosaics. And I think definitely it'll be a nice way to connect two of my favourite subjects together. Now moving on to fiction, I'm going to hopefully be reading some comedies. I've read some tragedies. I studied tragedy last year, but I think doing comedies would be really useful and interesting to kind of contrast them. So these are Aristophanes comedies, The Frogs and Other Plays. Don't know what plays they are. And the other plays are The Trial of Euripides, The Clouds and the Wasps. And as you can see, it's a very battered copy. I got it for like £1.50 at a second-hand sale or something like that. I've briefly touched upon a few comedies such as Aristophanes' Lysistrata, and I think I'm going to really enjoy these, and it'll be a nice change. So the next two books on my list are The Iliad by Homer and The Aeneid by Virgil, and these are both epic poetries. The Iliad is Greek and the Aeneid is Roman, and these are both core texts within the classics. I've already read and studied The Odyssey by Homer, but I'm going to be studying both of these next year, so I think I obviously need to read them before I study them. And I think what will be really interesting is, once I've studied all three of them, is to look at Virgil's influences, because he is heavily influenced by both of Homer's. And it'd be interesting to see how he combines them, because in Virgil it's both a voyage and a battle, whereas Odyssey's a voyage and Iliad's a battle. That makes sense. So basically the Iliad is about the Trojan War, and about Achilles and Hector's death, and kind of it's about I think it's the 9th year in the war it opens. The Aeneid is about the Trojans, so Aeneas is a Trojan, and after the fall of Troy they travel westward to create a new city. That's kind of Aeneas's destiny, and so he's travelling across and basically finds Rome. But the way that Virgil does it is like he doesn't mess with the Romulus and Remus myth. So, should be very interesting. I'm also planning to read Ovid's Metamorphoses, though Ovid is a Roman poet. So many of the myths that we know about transformation obviously come in Ovid's Metamorphoses, including Apollo and Daphne, in which he pursues her and she turns into a tree to stop him. And finally, I'm going to be reading The Red Pyramid by Rick Riordan. This is a fiction novel about the Egyptian gods, so it's like your Percy Jackson series, but for Egyptian gods. So it's about Carter and Sadie, whose dad's, it turns out, is like an Egyptian magician. Very difficult to say. And then they are as well, and you know, they have to save the world as you do. But I think what's going to be really good about this and any other of Rick Riordan's books is that I know that he knows his stuff, so he's not going to put any false myths in or tell something which is wrong simply for the purpose of telling the story, which I find with many historical fiction. I just think this book will be really handy to get, because I know nothing about the Egyptians, and so reading this book would be a fun and quick and easy way just to get the bare knowledge of the Egyptian myths and how they treated death and how they treated life and what kind of it was like for them. So yeah, that's my classic / ancient history TBR. I hope you enjoyed my video. Leave a comment on any of the books if you've heard them, if you've read them, any other suggestions that I could read, and I will see you soon. Bye bye.